I represent a very poor district that was devastated by the rate hikes, and I'm basically making statements that probably quite a few of my colleagues could make when it comes to these high rates that affected people's ability to choose between paying the rent, the mortgage, food on the table, automobile transportation to and from work. These rates that, to my mind and to my way of thinking, some of these high rate hikes were inexplicable. And when I tell you that I represent a very poor district, I represent Census Tract 3505, and the median income of some of these folks that are living in that tract is $24,000. So when you look at the percentage of the rate hikes that were passed on to the consumers, that percentage, based on the constituents that I serve, was a much higher percentage than some of us that are either middle income or live in the upper echelon in the state of Connecticut. And Madam Speaker, my first question to the good proponent of the bill is on the environmental justice community. What exactly in this section of the bill can these distressed municipalities sections, these census tracts, actually see as an improvement from the environmental justice community aspect? Through you.
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the good representative for his question, because we focus on a lot of other parts of this bill, and this deserves its own particular attention. In the first place, we are defining the environmental justice community as a critical intervener in a lot of the cases that come before PURA. We want to recognize it. We want to enshrine the importance of their voices being heard in this context. It's also critically important in the context of hardship cases that we make it as easy as possible for those who are legitimately eligible to access all the programs we put in place to mitigate the costs, the high cost of energy in a particular instance. We want to make it easier for them. I hope I'm answering the good representative's question adequately. This is a group that we recognize, exactly as the representative said, because of high energy costs, may be facing very difficult choices that nobody should have to make between all those things that make for quality of life or just basic survival. We hope what we're doing in this bill puts that concern front and center so that those needs are always considered regardless of the case, and that we will make the burden as little as we can, even recognizing we're a high cost of energy state. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Reyes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the good proponent of the bill for that explanation. I think it's an important piece of this particular bill. It's an important piece of the section that I had not heard anybody speak about when it comes to supporting and advocating for low-income communities. The other piece I want to talk about is this piece of legislation, through you, Madam Chair. Does it address any potential rebates for distressed communities and/or environmental justice communities? Through you.
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not familiar with explicitly a rebate program beyond the programs that are currently available. Our goal is to make them accessible, to make sure they're integrated in an efficient manner. We don't want to create an additional burden for people to apply for these programs. So it's not necessarily about adding new programs as much as making the ones we put on the table that we have funded work effectively for this particular group.
The question I'm asking now has to do with possibilities of the number of folks that had these services turned off and/or put on hold. Does the good chair of energy know if there's any particular carve-out for folks that still don't have power to this day? Through you.
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Speaker. I'm not aware necessarily of that being the case in many instances. I should also add to my previous answer that we have directed PURA to go beyond electric customers and to look at low-income issues for those with gas and water, because, frankly, we hadn't focused on those to the same degree, but they can also contribute to high costs and ability to pay, so that we have expanded at least the scrutiny somewhat. As far as people who are still without power, perhaps the good representative could rephrase his question.
Representative Reyes, could you please rephrase your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is more pointed, Madam Speaker, to folks that to this day right now have not been able to turn on X services due to the fact that of financial hardship. Through you.
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, we were aware, and I'm hoping there aren't many of those left, that because of sort of the hodgepodge approach of some of our programs, it was a real challenge for folks. And there were those with hardship who weren't able to access some of the programs because of that lack of integration. So again, I'm really hoping that nobody falls in that category currently where they can't get turned back on again. It's certainly something that I know Pura wants to eliminate to the degree possible. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. I think we're going to have to see how it plays out to make sure that we don't have a recurrence of that circumstance. A lot of what transpired this past year is pretty extraordinary, but it doesn't mean it can't happen again. So we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Reyes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my next point has to do with if we continue to be a high-cost state when it comes to energy, these are part of the contributing factors to having young, educated people who are paying back their student loan and a rent, maybe a mortgage, transportation, and so on and so forth. This could be one of the reasons why these younger people are not staying in Connecticut, and we need the talented pool that's educated to stay here. And I think that the high rates of all the services in the last couple of years has really done a disservice, I have to say, to those that are poor, working poor, and students that have either just graduated and or are trying to get established and having to pick between, again, choose whether they pay back their student loan, housing, transportation, and so on and so forth. But I think that at the end of the day, that I believe this piece of legislation is a step at least addressing the fact that this needed attention. So I do want to thank the committee and the good chair for his work and all his associates that have been on the Energy Committee. My last question, Madam Speaker, through you, has to do with the nuclear part of this particular piece of legislation. And I know he's answered quite a few questions on this, but I just want to ask very simply, at this point of the nuclear part of this bill, it is not advocating for a new nuclear power plant in the state of Connecticut. Is it more of a looking to see what we can do next with nuclear through you?
Representative Steinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm trying to understand the fine distinction in what the representative asked. It is not mandating additional nuclear in the state. To the good representative's point, it is important for us to explore what our alternatives are. Just like any other industry, the nuclear industry is evolving. Ideally, it's becoming somewhat safer. It's becoming more efficient. Given our needs in this state and how nuclear has worked for us in the past, it only makes sense for us to contemplate the prospect of new nuclear in this state. And if that's the case, we're probably going to be open-minded to that. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Reyes.
I want to thank the good chair of the Energy Committee, and I'm very thankful for his thoughtful answers, and I will continue to listen to the debate.